Engines have been around us for the longest of time, whether it's been in trains, airplanes, or cars. But when we think about engines, we usually think about cars because they usually resonate with each other. Now, to start it off, piston engines have been around us roughly 300 years. And it was first experimented by a French engineer named Nicolas Joseph Cugnot. And what he tried to do with his engine was that he tried to move his three-wheeled wagon, and he successfully did it, moving it 3 miles per hour. And the way that a piston engine works is that it uses these cylinders, or the pistons are cylinders, and they're usually on the side of the engine. Now, I'm sure you guys heard of V6s or V8s, but don't worry. Those numbers actually mean the number of cylinders that are in the engine. For example, a V8 would have 4 cylinders on one side and 4 on the other. Now, the piston engine uses a 4-stroke cycle. That's fairly easy. What it does in the first step is it intakes air. So as the cylinder goes down, it intakes that air. Now on the second step, it compresses that same air going back up and injects some gasoline in it. In the third step, there's a spark plug right on top, making a spark, creating a little tiny explosion, or also known as combustion, which leads to the final step, which is exhaust. And as that explodes, it also pushes out, making the car go. So all that combustion creates exhaust, and that exhaust is what makes the car go. And so that's the way the piston engine works. Now, the rotary engine, or also known as the Wankel engine, was founded in 1954 by a German engineer named Felix Heinrich Wankel. And what his engine did was create an alternative way to create that 4-stroke cycle. Now, instead of using cylinders, he used a triangular shaped rotor inside a little oval. Now, what this did is imitate the 4-stroke cycle. Now, it would turn, it would be a rounded triangle, and it would turn. And with each gap inside, it would intake air, and it would also compress it and make combustion. And what this engine did was actually make it more efficient to intake and make exhaust, meaning it made it more efficient than the piston-based engine. Now, while only being roughly 60 years old, 70 now, this Wankel engine was actually not used as much. More and more car manufacturers turned towards the piston-based engine, not only because it's been used for the longest of time, but it's also proven that the piston engine is more reliable. It was more reliable and as well as economical because it was greener. It didn't emit as much pollution than what the rotary engine did. Now, on the other hand, even though it was more reliable, it took a lot of space because it had a lot more parts, and it had more moving parts, meaning it was less stable. But when it comes to the differences, the rotary engine was a smoother drive, way more efficient, and it was smaller, so you can fit any rotary engine in any car and still have space. But the thing with rotary engines are that it's less reliable. They were more prone to breaking parts in the inside because it uses oil to lubricate the rotor. Now, if you use the wrong oil, or if you don't check it up as often, it could lead to drying or not lubricating it as well, making cracks in the crankshaft. or in the rotor house, the thing that houses a rotor, which makes it misfire or lose power. And also, the big thing about rotary engines is that people don't use it as much because it doesn't pass the emissions test. It pollutes a lot more than a piston engine. Now, even though in the future we're gonna go to electric engines, Mazda still tends to use the rotary engine for their top performance cars because of how smooth it drives and how much power it gives, even though they're ignoring the fact that it is less reliable and it pollutes way more. But yeah, these are the key reasons why piston engines and rotary engines have, and why piston engines are used more than rotary engines. Thank you.